tabling of the 2025 budget happened amid a lot of speculation around whether National Treasury would totally abandon the idea of a VAT increase altogether, with people wondering how it would then balance its books, given increased government spending pressures. In the end, the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, revealed that a 0.5 percentage point increase had been proposed to take effect from the 1st of May. So, with this latest development, what is it going to mean for the cost of living and ultimately the consumer? Well, to unpack further, I'm joined by Thabani Ndwandwe. He's the Chief Risk Officer at Standard Bank. Thank you very much, Thabani, for joining us. So come the 1st of May, VAT will be 15.5%. Just elaborate on how this will translate in the economy and what sort of impact it's going to have on consumers.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. So, the big story, of course, for this budget speech was the VAT, and there's many other changes that were announced in this story altogether, which will impact consumers. But you can imagine for the poor person who normally was buying goods of 1,000 rands, and that for the whole month in their groceries, and that VAT was 150. It will move up now to 155. But if you do that over the year, it's a lot of money. It looks like a small amount, but it's a lot of money, considering that many of the consumers have not yet recovered from the impact of COVID, as well as they're still struggling with high interest rates. As you know, that we didn't get the 25 basis points we were expecting on Thursday last week.
Yes. So just on a technical note, even if Parliament decides to reject the VAT hike, I read somewhere that the VAT increase would still have to be in place for a year before being amended accordingly. Is that correct?
I'm not too sure of the technical laws, but I know that the 0.5 basis points or the 5 basis points will have to be in a year, and then they will review and then decide if they add another 5 basis points in a year's time as well.
All right. Well, we wait and see. So the other issue that Treasury decided on was not to adjust pay brackets for inflation. What does this mean actually, and how does it translate for employed people like you and I?
Yeah, if you look at the VAT first, you'll notice that we call VAT a regressive tax. And what I mean is that people pay a bigger portion of it as poor people. Poor people tend to pay more VAT as a percentage of their income. And then the next tax that people who are middle income and higher income earners will pay generally is pay-as-you-earn tax, and they've kept that flat. What it then means that if you've had an increase, which is what we normally get for annual increases that are inflation linked, you will potentially move to the next tax bracket, meaning that you'll start paying more. Just between the two of these increases, between VAT and keeping the tax brackets flat, we're talking about 19.5 billion on keeping tax flat, which means there's a huge number of people who will move to the next tax bracket and pay more tax, as well as VAT, which is quite a substantial number of about 15 billion. So we're talking here about 34 billion that will be coughed up by consumers in South Africa.
So one of the positive things that came out of the budget was the plan to spend more on passenger rail, which will make transport more cost efficient for ordinary workers. But presumably that is actually going to take time. It's not something that we're going to see materializing this year.
Yes, transport is a big part of the cost of many South Africans because we all commute to work, and so it's a big cost for us. And so if you can get PRASA working and you can get more trains and more cheaper public transport, it will mean that, of course, more people can use public transport, especially when it's safe. But as you said, it will take a bit of time. It was one good thing that they implemented, especially because they've kept the fuel levies flat, however, did increase the carbon fuel taxes. So you do want these things to work hand in hand. Keep the fuel levies flat, reduce them a bit, and then move more people into the public transport. But we don't have a good track record of building proper public transport. So we're going to have to watch that carefully and see if they would do a good job or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last thing then, given that, what you've outlined and the fact that interest rates appear to have been halted for now, electricity hikes are coming come the 1st of April, at 12.7%. It really looks like the consumer is going to be in a very difficult space. So what's the advice? What do they do in the interim? All these barrage of increases, and it's not likely maybe that they're going to be wage increases. So what happens?
Look, we've had a 75 basis point reduction in interest rate since the start of the rate cut. And my sense is that we've reached almost the end of the rate cut cycle, right? Which means that we need to use those 75 basis points to reduce our debt. And I always say to people, if you've seen that reduction of your installments, use it to pay the more expensive debt, number one. With this tax as well, you have to review your tax structures. Look at how you can reduce the amount of tax you pay, particularly by deductibles that you can get in terms of tax, as well as starting to look at the goods that are tax exempt. In how you spend, there's many goods that have been included in tax exemption, so in VAT exemption. So look at those goods and buy more of those goods instead of buying the ones that are taxed. They've got VAT. And then likely one of the things that we have to all do is look at our lifestyle. One of the things that has gone up a lot is a tax on alcohol, what we call sin tax. So you have to think about how much you spend on alcohol and how much you spend on cigarette and adjust on your lifestyle. That's the only way you can sort of make it through this difficult environment in this space.
Yeah, well, thank you for those tips, Thabani, and thank you for your time. That was Thabani Ndwandwe. He is the Chief Risk Officer at Standard Bank.